know Houston, by Houston standards, I know nothing like this, right? Anyway, by California standards, with the freeways, you never know. So we usually like to give people a little bit of time. But since I see most of you here, I think just in honor of the time keeping, we should go ahead and get started. My name is Cheryl Svensson. Am I talking too loud? It's really hard to know. It's hard to know. No, it's not. How's that? Okay. My name is Cheryl Svensson. I have the honor of introducing you to my colleague and mentor, Dr. James Birren, and then also helping to present the program today that's going to be on guided autobiography, which is a program that he started more than 30 years ago, and he's just been devoted to it as well as I have for the last 10 years. So some of you, I'm assuming, came here because you either want to write your life story, or you're interested in it, or or your kids are here writing their life stories. I see a couple parents here that we've heard some stories about, good stories. Dr. Birren is the founding dean of the school that we're sitting in right now, the USC Andrews Center Davis School of Gerontology, and I was in the first graduating class in the master's program in 1977. Dr. Birren was here, but of course, being the dean and the director, you never really saw him. The only time I really had face-to-face with him was when I went down and I needed a letter of recommendation to get into a PhD program. So then I got to meet Dr. Birren, and apparently he wrote a very good letter because I did get in, and I did finish my PhD. So he must have... Anyway, so then I came back to California in 1980 from Sweden, and I reconnected with Jim Birren in the late 90s, and I've been hooked on guided autobiography ever since. So it's really been kind of a full circle for me to come back to this. And now we've taught 3 different classes here in the Davis School, where we've combined emeriti and retired faculty, as well as graduate and undergraduate students. Now I know we don't have our whole class because the class actually counts 18, but we do have some of them. So those students of mine who are being forced to be here today, because I'm taking roll, just raise your hand so that they can see who the students are, that there are plants in here. And also the retired faculty who are here as well. We have our students there. So it's been a great class. It's been a wonderful mix of students and, sharing the experience across the years. I was going to start this out by saying, and I guess it's because I'm so nervous I already forgot it, I went to bed last night and I had my outline with me, going over the outline. I think people should never do things like that because then I dreamt about it. And it wasn't even a dream. I'm telling you, it was a nightmare. I woke up this morning, and now this is the honest-to-God truth. I woke up this morning and I thought that you were... What happened was we were doing the presentation. We were outside on like a grassy knoll, and you have to imagine that back here there's a hotel. So I must have thought about all you people flying in from places with balconies looking at us. And Jim and I were down here, and the thing was Sarah Palin was supposed to be the guest speaker, and she was a no-show. She didn't come. So it was like all of a sudden Jim and I are having this terrible time trying to figure out how to do this presentation on autobiography when you're expecting Sarah Palin. So anyway, thank God. If anybody here is expecting Sarah Palin to show up, I'm sorry. It's not true. Too bad, yeah. I don't think USC could afford her fees, actually. I'm going to turn this over now for a few minutes to Dr. Birren, who's going to kind of bring this back to normalcy and talk to you about aging from a perspective of being 92 years old. He is, when he's not present, I like to call him the godfather of gerontology. I usually don't do that to his face. He wrote the first textbook called On the Psychology of Aging back in the 60s. I don't remember if it's 1966 or 62. 1964, right in the middle, right? Not 62 or 66, 64. He wrote the first textbook on the psychology of aging. He's been in the field. He attended there's two big gerontology associations, the Gerontological Society of America. He attended the first meeting of that society in 1948 in New York City. And he likes to say he's still standing and the hotel it was held in has been demolished. So Dr. Birren, I would like to turn this over to you for a few minutes before we get into the big heavy things about autobiography. You can either use this or you can stand there and use that microphone.
I think I'll do this.
Okay, then we'll put this in your pocket.
Where should this be kept?
Okay, He has on his Van Gogh tie here, I've noticed. Okay, say something.
Can you hear me? Yes. Okay, very good. I had quite a few notes here, but your comments inspired me to say something else. And one of them was about change and how much has changed. And now change interacts with our lives and also influence what we might say to the younger generation. Dr. Jerry Walker here is head of the Emeriti Center, and we're trying to mix students' thoughts about their lives, their autobiographies, with retired people. And there's a dynamic there. The students get impressed with what the older people have lived through, and then the retired people get impressed by what the young people are living through. Their worries about the economy and will they get a job and what will their families be like. So this kind of exchange is encouraged in our autobiography groups that Dr. Walker's encouraging, and also Cheryl Svensson here. My biggest word at the moment is change, though, and I want to drop back a little bit with the emergence of gerontology. Here we are sitting in a building called the Gerontology Center. It's called the Ethel Percy Andrus Gerontology Center. Who is Ethel Percy Andrus? Some of the students have heard me say this before, but she was a principal of a high school here, Lincoln High School in East Los Angeles. When she retired, she got $60 a month pension. That was very little, so she organized with the California retired teachers to get money from the state, went to Sacramento. Then the next thing was, in those days, in the early 1960s, if you were over 65, you couldn't get private health insurance. Can you imagine that? You were just regarded as a poor risk, and the insurance companies would not underwrite it. So Ethel Percy Andrus went to New York, and with the New York Teachers Association, they got a plan to develop health insurance there for the retired teachers in New York. And the way they agreed to do it was if they lost money, the state retired teachers would underwrite the loss. And then she recruited a man, Leonard Davis, whose name is on the school here, and he said he would donate any money he made from the premium on the health insurance the first year to advertise the program for the retired teachers. Well, it didn't lose money. It made money the first year. And that was a change for the insurance companies because they believed health insurance for older people was not profitable. Don't do it. So here it was it made. Leonard Davis himself was a relatively poor man. He grew up in the back of a candy store in New York with his mother and two siblings. And then he was not drafted in World War II because he had a heart murmur. So he became a millionaire through this thing that he helped to support, but it was from the ground up. And there was Ethel Percy Andrus, a school teacher, school principal, founding a movement in America for health insurance for people over 65. Now we take that for granted, but think of the change of that. My mother and father didn't have health insurance. They were over 65. So change is the big thing, and adapting to change. Then what Ethel Percy Andrus was faced with, other people in the country, retirees, wanted health insurance. How to help that? That led to the establishment of the American Association of Retired Persons. now just called AARP. And so they underwrote health insurance, got policies, still working with Leonard Davis. And then other things moved on. There were other issues involving the older population. People were living longer, more active lives. And so then they decided to move out, and Ethel Percy Andrus was the school teacher. Well, there's something about education here. And they came to USC, to the committee after she died, with a retired faculty member from Stanford, and asked if we were interested in establishing a gerontology center here at USC. And the AARP underwrote the construction of this building. Change, that idea would be so foreign in, say, 1950 or 1940. And then Leonard Davis agreed to support, and he gave $2 million to support the Leonard Davis School of Gerontology, so we could begin to study academically the issues of aging, and with a population that was living longer in a period of social change. What kind of change? I'm just going to mention a few things. You have my off button.
No, yeah, I'll come tap you on the shoulder. I got your off button. I think Betty really has it, but I'll...
I'm thinking about change, and if you're graduating from college, finishing your academic degrees, you're going to be faced with change. It's not going to be that way at the time you graduate for the rest of your life. When I think of the change from my career, one, when I was a student, you had adding machines. Then later on, after around World War II, you got calculators. And I remember doing a factor analysis on a desk calculator. And then what happened, the mainframe computer came in. And in 1975, when this building opened, we got a mainframe computer. And then you had to use hollerith cards to enter the data. And then along came desktop computers and now laptop computers. Think of that change. If when I graduated and got my degree just about World War, well, I got my PhD right after World War II. If I couldn't adapt to the computer, I would be out of it. You know, you have to go along with change. So one of the issues of life is adapting to change. And autobiographies tell us something about the details of change, what it was like then, what's now, and how have people adapted to change. I have some other thoughts here about, well, how did gerontology evolve? I think the emphasis today is on individual life stories. How did you evolve? How do you interpret your life? How you interpret your life, there's never been another you. Each one of you is unique. You have a genetic structure that may be like your family, but now a new science is coming in called epigenetics, how the genome is modified in its expression even by environmental influences. And then you have the personal experiences of family and the life circumstances of where you grew up. And if I got a feeling of freedom on my talk, I'd give you examples of the stories I've heard here. A man growing up in South Dakota walked a mile over snow in the winter to a one-room schoolhouse. A woman in New York, their family lost their money in the Great Depression. They moved down to Long Island, rented a house for $10 a month. had an outhouse. And so the changes of life, so your genetics, your background, and how you interpret your life influences the outcomes of your life, and including now beginning to recognize your health. How you interpret your life influences your health. Now that's been slow to evolve. Early in my career, I was with the National Institutes of Health, and at that time, it was very influenced by the infectious disease period. People had infectious diseases, and that's what they died from. And then you had vaccines. A disease was looked upon as an individual entity that had a single cause and then a single major treatment. But then chronic diseases came in, and there was still the look about having research concentrated on a single cause, and there was confusion. When a colleague of mine and I suggested at the National Institute of Mental Health that we have a separate laboratory on the study of aging, it was discarded because of the ideas of the day. Aging is just the expression of early life. The psychoanalysts were dominating then, and the thought that the first 2 or 3 years of your life were the important years, and then you lived out the scenario from that. And then when we proposed the laboratory, it was turned down. So now what's change we're facing again? Well, we're living longer. Here I am, 92, speaking to you. I never expected this. So people are living longer, and we have one example of a change in a former student that was with us here, Patricia O'Neill. We have gathered life stories, but then there's an academic side of life stories. How you interpret them, what do they tell us about people, what do they tell about lives that are more successful than others? Now this student was 62, she had a law degree, and she retired from her practice and wanted to get a degree in gerontology. She came here and got a master's degree in gerontology, but her study was the analysis of autobiographies. See, there's the personal side, there's never been another you, and then there's the other side. How do the academics interpret this? So we gave her a collection of life stories. She went through it. One of the questions was, how do men and women interpret their lives? Men and women interpret their lives differently, with different emphasis. Women tend to project external causality in their life. Men tend to project internal. I did it, I made a mistake, or I did it right. So the different interpretations. Now, she got her master's here at age 62, already leaving her law practice. And she's now in Singapore, and she's trying to get a doctoral dissertation through the University of Oxford. She's an Oxford graduate student today, 62, going into a new degree program and leaving a career. It's a whole new life. So in a sense, one of the issues of change is, what are you going to do with the gift of long life? If you're going to retire and live 30 years longer, what are you going to do with 30 years? Going on to further education, that's one of the trends. Many people like Patricia O'Neill are moving into education to do something they've always put aside, and now it's a releaser. I'm getting a symbol from Cheryl here that the off button used to be used. But
well, let's see if I can join you. I guess I'm on a short leash, though, from my end. We can do this tandem. I mean, go ahead and sit down, because I'll bring you into it as well.
Now sit down.
You can sit down. Jim said a couple things that I wanted to kind of comment on. One of them, first of all, he mentioned the fact that we teach the class with retired faculty and staff as well as younger students. And this is really for the benefits of the retired faculty that are here today from our class. There's been a study that was published in the Scientific American Mind magazine, and I'm going to quote this. Through social interactions alone, the young can pass some of their vigor on to the elderly, improving the older generation's cognitive abilities and vascular health, and even increasing their lifespan. So all of you older adults here, just because you're here working with these students, you're going to live longer, you're going to be happier, you're going to have more, and all of you who are doctors can look up this study and find out how true it is or not, but you know that there's good reasons you're here. Secondly, I wanted to comment, Jim was talking about change, and he actually has changed, just coming into the information age. He now does email regularly. He sends attachments regularly. The other thing, though, is really pretty funny. You all know Wikipedia? Well, I get this email from Jim Birren forwarded to me by a former student that had taken this 423 class. And she said, "Oh, Dr. Birren, I just found you on Wikipedia. There's page after page written on you. That's my goal in life, is to get on Wikipedia." I get this email from Jim Birren. He goes, "Cheryl, what is this Wikipedia stuff?" So I go, "Jim, just click on it." So then he comes back and he says, "How did they find all that out?" And there really is. If you do Wikipedia and go in and put in James Birren, there are page after page after page. And I might also announce that his wife, Betty, is sitting here in the front row. Betty, say hello. I used to say better half, and she corrected me. They will have been married 68 years. I actually hardly could believe that. I had to physically write it out and do it in December of this year. And also his daughter, Barbara, who lives in the UK, and her husband, John, are here visiting. Okay, so let's kind of bring this back from change to why you're all here. This is memoir writing, life story writing. And like Jim said, there's never been another you. Go ahead. Go ahead. I knew it. I knew he was going to say something.
The issue of change again, and why is there so much contemporary interest in writing your life stories, exchanging them, passing them on to your family? And I think one is that we've become a more efficient but less personal society. We're getting more out of less. When I was a boy, when I went shopping for my mother on Saturday, each shop was an individual one. There was a bakery, there was a butcher shop, there was a greengrocer, there was something else, and often the owners of the shop would be there, and they were the ones that would sell you what they were selling. Today, you can go to Ralph's or Vaughn's or one of the big ones. You can go pick up all the things you want to buy and check out without speaking to a single person. And a reminder that recently was, a few years ago when I was in Amsterdam, a colleague who spent some time here in gerontology, now at the University of Amsterdam, they took us to the marketplace, and the marketplace was an open one, and the owners of these little booths would give the little girls they knew a cookie. And then I went to the butcher shop with my friend, and there was a young man at the counter, and my friend said, "Well, where's your father today?" "Oh, he's doing something else." My goodness, the idea that the customer knew the child and the father, that's all gone today. It's more efficient. You get the goods you want fast, but you don't speak to a particular person. Somebody has criticized this by the idea that the cell phone makes things more personal. Well, when you're on the cell phone, you're usually getting some instructions. Your wife is telling you what to buy at the market. Or some other issue from work, but you're not reading the facial expression of the other person, that personal exchange. When you walk down the street with a cell phone, you don't wave to the person next to you, you don't even see that person. So that's an area for academic research, and that's coming in now. We're studying the number of confidants people have, the number of friends they have, and it's less than it used to be.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
I did.
That was great. You led right into it. We must have done this enough now, Jim, that we are kind of reading one another's minds. It's bringing it back from, Jim likes to call this, and I don't even know if you coined it or not, but the impersonal age. We've become more efficient and less personal. And so there's an increasing drive and kind of a wave of people writing their memoirs. I mean, I guess none of us are quite famous enough to have Kitty Kelly want to write our book like she's done with Oprah and things, but other people are out there writing their life stories. You can do it in a book. Many grandparents, I'm a gerontologist, so I teach classes with older adults. I get them to come in and they bring this book, a regular hardbound book, that their daughter or son has given to them, that they're supposed to fill it in. It's like, remember that when your kids were born and you have to fill in the weight and the date and all of those firsts? They want their parent to fill in, where they were born, how they got their name, what they played with as a kid, all of those things. It's so impersonal. And first of all, older adults won't write in a new book. It's something like, sure, go ahead.
When my mother died in 18 months, within a month of my child being born, I bought three of those, and gave them to the grandparents. I desperately wanted those filled out, and it broke my heart. It was way too late. I mean, she was about to die.
She was about to die. But it was also it was a book. See, and the other thing that happens is that you get just to sit down and write in that book is very boring. We're going to get into the guided autobiography that really works on the group process, but it's very hard for them. And the children, adult children, do it because you really do want the stories, just like you wanted those stories down, and you don't have time. You might have been working, had children in your house still. There's no time to do all the things we want to do. There really isn't. Okay, there's also life writing classes. If somebody can take a class. And those are usually creative writing classes rather than just, there's the story corps. How many of you know about the story corps? Where they go around and they do the little 15-minute CD with just getting that down. They're now I can't remember the number. It's some incredible number of veterans that die every day now, and so they're getting those stories down and they're recording them and they're saving them in the Smithsonian or someplace, one of the national museums, because they want to keep those stories. So now we know that there are more things going on. So why do people do it? Why write your story? You wanted your mother's story. Did you not? She hadn't told that to you before. You hadn't. We don't have time. We are all so busy doing things. We really don't have time to do it all.
This issue of interest in autobiography is not just America. It's even intense in Asia. Cheryl is doing an autobiography online, and she's getting people from Asia that enter in and want to exchange that. You say, why Asia? Well, in Asia, they call it the age quake. People are living longer within one generation. The change there is faster than it is here. And also, culture there was stronger about caring for older people. In India, the young people are moving to the cities to be in the high-tech society. The older people are left behind without very much social care. So Asia is very interested in this exchange as well. And I just want to emphasize again that we're talking about autobiography as a personal interpretation of your life. How did you evolve? Passing that on, doing research. So there's a continuation here, and gerontology is supporting the interest, as is the Emeriti Center, in encouraging this generational exchange of information. about change and how do you adapt. My last thought, and I'll sit down for a while, is what has gerontology taught us? It taught us that age doesn't cause anything. Age is only an index to causal factors, and you have to take the cover off to see what's causing it. And that's what gerontology is getting to be involved in. You say aging, there are plus factors and minus factors, and it's just an index. And it has it's an efficient way of estimating something. But if you go to the doctor and you complain about osteoarthritis, and he'll say, that's just your age, that's not the answer you want to hear. Or my memory is not as good as it used to be. Oh, it's just you're getting older. That's not it. That's not what's causing it.
Oh, it is on. You can hear me now? Okay. I guess it is on. It's not as loud as yours, but I'll catch up. I'll catch up to you. Well, just as you said, what you wanted was you wanted the legacy. You wanted your mother's legacy. And that's one of the main reasons people come in. They've either had a child or a grandchild or somebody come up and say, gosh, Dad, I didn't know that about you. You know, maybe you should write that down, or we want to keep those stories for the rest of the family. So writing your legacy is one of the main reasons people come in. And like Jim Birren said, there's never been another you, and who knows you better than yourself? There's actually a book out called My Brother is an Only Child. Now, could you imagine your sibling, your brother or your sister writing your story? Everybody, you can go through the very same experiences, and you're all going to experience them differently. In our guided autobiography groups, we never put best friends. I can tell you, too, we have a couple here. We divorce the couples. We divide them up in the groups so that we never... Why? Because they know you a certain way. And when you're in this group, you are allowed to kind of become something else. You grow and you develop and you change. And you don't have your... I mean, I love my husband, but, you know, if I really have a problem, he's probably not the one I go to. And this is typical. When Jim was talking about confidants, most women, your spouse is not your confidant. With the men, it is. It's probably because we're the only ones they really talk to. But women go to somebody else, and I can tell you why, because they tell you what to do. You know, I'll say, gosh, I'm just so overworked or overstressed. Well, why don't you do da-da-da-da-da? And I've got a whole list. And sometimes you just want somebody to listen to you. You just want to be heard. So anyway, we don't put spouses together in groups for any other reason than that. Jim likes to talk about your life as being a jigsaw puzzle. You know, when you sit down and do a jigsaw puzzle, you take all the pieces and you've got you turn them. First of all, you turn them all right side up, so you're looking at the colors. You put all the trees over here, you put the sky over here, you put that red barn down here in this corner. You start pulling the pieces together. It's the same way with your life. When you start writing your story, it's really kind of getting it all out there, getting it all mixed up and getting it going, so that you can make sense of it. It's to make sense of your life is really what it's all about. So when you do that, then you can find out, well, do I want to keep doing what I'm doing? Sometimes you need to step back to see your life, to see is this really, you know, now when you realize that, well, except for our 19-year-old, just recently turned 19-year-old student, you know, 88-year-old students, you have less years to live than you have lived. How do you want to spend those rest of those years? Are there any changes you want to make? And unless you put it all out there, you're not going to see it, so you don't know. So one of the things when you write your story, it's a way to do that. And it's kind of a housekeeping that you go through. So what are the benefits? Why do it? You know, is like Jerry. I hate to pick on you, Jerry, but you're the only one who's actually done it before. And the first time you did it, what would you think would be one of the benefits of having written your guided autobiography?
Well, you mentioned the legacy. I do want my daughters and my grandchildren to have a sense of the person I was that I am, as they know me now, but the grandchildren will not likely know me as mature adults, and I would like them to have what I don't have. I would like my grandparents and my parents to have, they told me stories but they didn't all sink in the proper fashion. So I wish I had their autobiographies in writing.
Gosh, I've never seen so many microphones now. I'm just happy. Everywhere I go, there's another mic. You just brought up something that is precious to me. My father was the youngest of 8 children. My grandfather came over from Germany. He was a Lutheran minister. My father was the youngest. I was the youngest of 5 kids. All 4 of my grandparents were deceased before I was born. My grandfather wrote his autobiography like less than a year before he died in German. None of us spoke German. I didn't know any German at all, right? In German. It languished among the family until the late 80s. And then somebody said, oh, well, I can translate that. They translated his story, which was, he titled it, A Report of My Life as Short as Possible. Sounds very German, doesn't it? Sounds like that's what the Germans would say, you know, let's just be efficient and get this over with. I always know when my German half kicks in because I get that way. Anyway, this is precious to me. So I have a colleague that I work with, and she bought a bookbinding press. So in my guided autobiography classes, we can actually put people's stories together in books like this for less than $20. So I have this story of my grandfather. It's the only way I know him. My father died when I was 12. I know more about my grandfather's life than I do my own father. Now that says something. So I mean, it just tells you that what we need to do is start looking at our history, who we are, where we came from, so we know where we're going, as well as passing it on to somebody else. Okay, now I lost my notes. I left the microphone over here.
Well, I don't get to keep it.
No. And the other thing it does then is reconnects the generations. Just like I told you, you know, you guys are all going to be, your vascular health is improving the longer you sit next to Emily there, RG. You didn't know that, but it's really working on you, you know. So mixing up the generations is a good thing. Okay, now we've gone through the how. You can go to a writing class, you can get a book, you can get one of the fill-in-the-blank books, you can get tapes. We've actually produced, mainly because we didn't want to lose him, or we kind of wanted to record him. I didn't mention this too much about Dr. Birren, but he started out back in the 60s and 70s and even 80s, you know, very much a hardcore researcher. He could tell you the conduction velocity of the neurons on a rat, you know, and do it brilliantly. But at one point in his life, he did a summer institute at the University of Hawaii. And while he was there, he conducted a class on psychology of aging, and the class was just flat. You know, sometimes like nobody seemed engaged at all. So he told them to go home. He said, write 2 pages on a branching point in your life, anything, and it's not graded. I think that was the key right there. It's not graded. Come back. They came back and they read these 2 pages that they had written. He said the class became alive. They just got engaged. They were hooked. Why? They heard the stories of the other people in the class. So once they got involved with those stories, they knew rather than just, I mean, I could ask Emily and Argy, but I don't think you're in the same group, are you? No, you're not. Anyway, once you know the stories of somebody in your group, you're connected in a different way than you were when you just came in and saw a face. So they were connected. So he came back to USC. He got his son Jeff among ones. I don't know if Bruce was, but I know Jeff was. He got him involved in researching the history of autobiography, looking into small group processes. And out of that has come 2 books and a lot of research, because Jim Birren will always be an academic, fully academic. I mean, to the core, I think, you know, even with Wikipedia. The second book is called Telling the Stories of Life Through Guided Autobiography Book Groups. It was produced in 2001. We call this, again, when he's not around, the Birren Bible. Because with this book, you can pick it up if you have small group skills, if you're a counselor, if you have a sensitivity to people, and you can go through and step by step know how to teach a guided autobiography class, how to lead it, and get the benefits from that. So what I want to talk now about, and then I started mentioning this. So anyway, we wanted to record Jim Birren talking about what he loves best, which I think he would even tell you today is guided autobiography. Is that right, Jim? I mean, guided autobiography is your passion? One of them? Yes.
The stories
the stories. You get hooked on the stories. And that's true. You don't forget the stories. You'll forget somebody's name or face, but you really won't forget the stories or the lemon cake. Things like that you just don't forget. So we've recorded Jim introducing 5 themes of guided autobiography. There are actually 9 themes. There's 10 sessions. Like I said, he's an academic. 10 sessions. Why? It's an academic quarter. The only reason. 10. So we have this recorded, and these are available on our website if anybody's interested. So let's talk about guided autobiography. What is guided autobiography? Do some of you know? I mean, I know I've met online and now in person a woman named Lori who's here from St. Louis, right? Now, what is your background with guided autobiography, Lori?
During my master's program in St. Louis for gerontology, I decided to do a thesis on document the positive aspects of helping people. It's actually more life stories, but I incorporated a lot on guided autobiography because it was so well documented, I could support my thesis. So that's kind of how I was exposed, but I was also just drawn to it. Everyone has a story.
Oh, they do.
And so everyone that knows me through that program, or even outside the program now, knows that I have a passion for this. So I'm kind of trying to drive that if I can.
Are you working with Dr. Tom User at the Gerontology Center at St. Louis?
I do not work for him, but we are affiliated in many professional organizations and have a great mutual respect for each other. He actually was trying to have me join up with our PhD program, but at the time, I went back to school at 45 to get my master's in gerontology. And I decided, until I'm gainfully employed permanently, that would probably be where I would go after I have some employment.
So you have a daughter or son here?
I have a son here who's a sophomore in engineering, actually.
Oh, great. Well,
So I'm thrilled to be here.
I don't know how I got off on that. Talking about guided autobiography, I guess. Does anybody else besides my students know what it's about? I'll just give you a brief explanation of it. It's based on a small group process. You don't write individually. You don't have a book to fill in or lines to fill in. It's based on, the content basically is life themes. And there are themes that all of us go through. I don't care if you're from Dubai or if you're from Houston or St. Louis or England. Everybody has a family. Everybody has a role of money in their life. George, who is actually Greek, brought in for his, today the class is reading their theory about money. He brought in the Greek, I already forgot what it's called, drachmas or dramas or drachmas. That was close. Drachmas. You know, he has some of the Greek coins that now to their discontent are euros, but before these are the drachmas. If you want to pass this around and just look at this. So one of the themes is on money. You know, how did you get your ideas about money in your life? You know, when was your first job? You know, did you ever have to borrow money? And then the next theme is...
Can I interject something?
Sure.
Money can be very important to some people and not some others. I remember doing an autobiography group where a man from the East Coast was complaining about the issues of money, and then a woman growing up in Iowa said, "Oh, I grew up on a farm, and we traded things with neighbors, and we didn't experience much of the Great Depression." So it varies from individual to individual. And one other thing I want to emphasize, doing your autobiography in the group, as you listen to the issues of money or family or to some other topic, the group primes your memories. You have many more memories in your nervous system than you realize. You double your vocabulary by late life from the time you leave college. Can you imagine that? You may know 47 to 50,000 words when you're age 60. That's twice as much as you did. So listening to other people's stories primes your own memories, what it was like back then. Oh, that reminds me of something. And oh, I remember when I got that nickel and I could buy a Baby Ruth candy bar.
Butterfinger for me. I love Butterfingers. Anyway, he kind of took us one step ahead, but in the same vein. The content then is based on life themes and sensitizing questions with each theme. And then the themes, to go back a second, get more sensitive or more personal. You start with branching points, and then family, and then the role of money, and then work and life career. Everybody's had something that they do. Even my students will think about what they want to be, or how did they get their ideas about what they want to be. And then the next one, it is health and body image. Were you a healthy child? Were you a late bloomer or an early bloomer? And the second one is sexual identity, gender identity. How did you get your ideas about being a boy or a girl? When did you first notice the difference? So anyway, and then the next one is spirituality and death and dying. And the final one is always goals and aspirations, because Dr. Birren always says it doesn't matter how old you are, and this is true. He's 92. He's still leading guided autobiography groups. He lives in a continuing care retirement community that, not by chance, I think, is called University Village. And I think he's now on his 5th guided autobiography group there with the seniors, and he's combining it with Cal Lutheran College is across the street, so they're using graduate students as well. So he's still actively involved in that. Anyway, he said everybody has to have a reason to get up. All of us who are still working may say, I can't wait till I retire and I'm going to play golf every day. I think after a while, even that gets boring. You've got to have some reason to get up and keep going. So the themes are standard. They're done in a particular order, mainly because the process is built on the small group. So in our class, we have 18 students. That's combining the faculty as well as the undergraduate and graduate students. We divide that into 3 small groups. Now, why a small group? Well, I already told you I had a nightmare. A nightmare about talking to all of you this morning, so I kind of gave that away. But not everybody is comfortable, myself included, talking to large numbers of people. But in a small group, like if you and I, Sonia? Say that again?
Donna. That's my daughter's name.
Oh, I was going to say, if that says Donna, then my eyes have really got bad. Donna. Okay, Donna. Okay. Anyway. If you and I were sitting over coffee or talking, we would be much more intimate and revealing than if if you're standing like me, standing up here talking to, 30, 40 people, right? So we break it. We never have maximum 7 to 8 people in a small group. So in my class, we have 3 groups. So I'm a facilitator for one small group. Dr. Walker is a facilitator for one group, and his lovely wife, Laura, is my third. So there are 3 of us that work with the small groups. In the small group, you come back and you read your story. So the students, regardless of age, write their stories at home on the same theme. And with that theme, you're given a list of sensitizing questions. Or Jim Birren likes to call it, because he can go back to the days of priming the pump. I guess when you pumped water, you had to pour water into it to get it primed. Well, these questions are priming the pump. So they're getting you to think about it. And you don't answer them literally. You just read them over, and honest to goodness, there's always somebody that's, if it's not the night before the class, it's the morning before. They're finishing up writing and trying to get it printed out to bring in to read. So what happens is, even if a topic is difficult, you end up doing it because you feel a responsibility and obligation to your small group. You don't want to show up empty-handed. And secondly, if the teacher is like me, they know they have to do it anyway and turn it in and read it the next time. So even if it's a difficult topic, that they're still responsible for doing that. So let's try it. Let's have them. Did you all get the lovely folders that the USC school has put out for you? They have little. If you look inside of it, there's a little folder here. Guided Autobiography, a Life Review Workshop, USC, the Trojan Parents Weekend. Okay, if you look at this, inside you're going to find the story of your major branching points of your life. Open it up, it's on the right-hand side. The branching points is the first one. These are the questions that are listed on a regular form that you would be doing. So what I want you to do is I know this is going to be difficult for you, to get up and move around. You have to find somebody you're not married to or don't know or haven't met, or not from the same area. And I want you to, go into groups of 2 or 3. Maybe 3 would be good. We're pretty good size. 3 of you at a time. And each of you tell one another about a branching point in your life. And even our youngest student up there, I'm sure he's going to be another Trojan one day. He's got to have a branching point in his life. Maybe it was making or not making a first string little league team or playing soccer or whatever. So everybody find somebody and pair up and just pick out a branching point and tell your group, your three, about this branching point in your life. Take like 5-10 minutes, okay? No mothers and daughters either. Not a problem.
Well, Emily, you're welcome to come
do you
talk
think?
to this lady because I haven't done
I
this
saw a
kind of
couple of
Please.
leaving.
Going on all over the campus.
Oh, I see.
Drop in and drop out.
I think it's got a lot of vitality about it. I think this is a releaser. This is very good.
So branching points are sort of, things that cause major impact on your life.
How long you do? 15 minutes or what? For three. Well, it's cold in here. There's Linda Birren up there. The door. Just right. You know, today I found her totally different from the way she used to be. Well, she was welcoming to me, warm, and talked about her early background here. Yeah.
I think she runs hot. I sat next to her at the GSA meeting when they introduced you. You remember that when they introduced you at the GSA meeting? I was next to her, so we had a chance to talk.
She mentioned gerontology today as being, I don't know, something she's really involved in. She apparently got a degree here in gerontology. Ask her. That's right. So she was probably a graduate student, got a master's in gerontology, but I never knew that. Because I always had the feeling
Japanese
just distant and manipulative.
I hope we're not being recorded. I don't think so. I don't think so, but we'll tell them to cut that if it is. Come on in, baby.
Dr. Birren, how are you?
You've heard all this before.
Oh, yeah. It's good refreshing. Yeah. Yeah. I totally forgot it was Parents Weekend until this morning. I got here and I was just like, what's it going to be? Oh, I had no idea. Yeah.
This has my email on here.
Seems like there's a
And here.
breakfast table everywhere you go.
I would love to find out some collaborators.
Yes, I'd love to. That'd be wonderful.
Yeah, this is thrilling.
That'd be
And then
wonderful.
I wondered about that reference that you mentioned.
What reference is that?
On the study of
That's what I was
scientific
going to
American
see.
mind.
Oh, no, it's been translated to English.
That was fantastic. About younger and older people
Here.
together.
Are there any?
Scientific
Maybe.
American Mind.
Oh, yeah, it's in the back. It's in German.
Talk to teens with one. Okay, well, at least I'll have it.
I'd say it's at least a year.
Okay.
Or I can scan it and send it to you when you email me.
This is wonderful.
Okay, great.
Thrilled. I don't
You know, he used to be at UCLA. You know that. Oh, he was over at the Center in Aging. He was there from 83 to maybe 5 years ago. Yeah. Yeah. You had never met him before?
No.
Oh, come over and let me introduce you.
Love to do that.
Dr. Birren. From UCLA. She didn't know you were there. And I said, you were at the Center on Aging for how long? Right next to the Birren career. Oh, yes, I know who he is. Opening up. It's fantastic. I've witnessed what you're talking about. Oh, I know. We all do. You know, and the research that's going on is incredible. There's a woman that I work with, a psychotherapist who specializes in Rachel Ballard. But one of the things she always says is emotions that are not allowed to release in tears, or sorrow that is not allowed to release in tears, makes the organs weak. Which I think is just great. Yeah, it's a great metaphor. I can just imagine it. My stomach crying. I'm sure you get that a lot. Oh, cry all the time. It's something about reading it. Yes. You know, they write it and they're fine, and then they'll go, gosh, you know, that happened 35 years ago, and I can't believe I'm still, feeling this kind of emotion. Yeah. It's powerful. Oh, how exciting to find somebody. Yeah, well, we're here. Yes, and they
One of the things that different, for example, when I asked a 75-year-old psychoanalyst that we had in charge of a psychoanalytic institute in Beverly Hills, what he would change about his life. He said, I would put people in a group.
there are not enough individual therapists to go around, and not only that, but people don't like that. They want to be with other people. And,
You develop your confidence, your trust, you tell more, and you learn more from the other people.
that is so
Huh?
true.
No.
Thank you so much for your pioneering work. I'm so excited about learning more about it. Thank you very much.
Maybe our paths will cross again.
I do hope so. Thank you.
About 11:30 to read the story.
finding you.
Oh,
Oh
great.
my gosh, I came to this for,
I have taught the class through the UCLA Extension, the Ocean Lifelong Learning Program.
absolutely.
But it's like, I said I can't do it anymore. I live in Newport Beach.
Oh,
so
that's where I grew up.
Oh, okay. Well, I live in Corona Del Mar.
That's where I went to high school.
Both my boys went to CDM High School.
Kidding.
Yeah, no. Anyway, the class was at 1 o'clock. I leave my house at 10. I'd get home at 6. I go, you know what? For the amount you pay me, which is $50, I can't do it. So I haven't done it. But anyway, I'd love to work with you.
Talk about
I'm doing things online.
training programs.
I'm doing online
I'm
training.
trying to deal with online.
Yeah.
I can self-promote your work. This
Okay,
is so
great.
exciting.
Great.
Thank you so
I don't
much.
have exactly 10, so if you want
Oh.
to just take the 20.
Jim,
that's
do
fine.
you by any chance have $10? Do you have $10?
If you don't worry about it. Just keep it.
She's buying this and wants you to sign it.
Can you sign it
Here,
for
I'll let
me?
you open it up.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Boy, that thing down.
That's it's not a problem.
Look at all that money. 20, 5.
Maybe I can do it. Let's see.
It looks like he does.
1, 2, 3, 4. Only a 9.
9.
That's
9.
That's it doesn't matter. It's more the
Now let me see if I have a pen that will write on that.
I don't have a Sharpie with me.
Not there.
I may have. I don't know if my blue one will. Let me just. I was going to ask you for you just to sign this for me. It would be a pleasure for me if you would do it. Thank you.
A green one.
Thank you so much.
No problem. I think you'll enjoy it.
Oh, yeah. I came like 2 years ago, I think, when Dr.
Redondo Beach.
Cohen was here.
Yeah? Oh, Gene Cohen, yeah.
And I got so inspired by school gerontology
Oh, yeah?
because I'm a nurse.
Oh.
And I work with a population that's in their 50s and up in
Yeah.
research. And my next phase of career that I want to go into is something to do with gerontology, either patient advocacy or that.
We do,
And-
take this. It has my email on it.
Okay.
Well, I do online training. Jim mentioned a little bit. I do online training for instructors as well as writing classes. So there's a lot going on right now.
Thank you so much.
That was pretty good.
Thank you.
That was what an idea. Thank you.
What do you do about that $20 here?
Keep it. Keep it. You just made $10. We sold one. Keep it. Use it for your lunch.
Where does this go?
Take it. It's yours.
Really?
Yeah. You just made $10. Just another couple minutes, and then we're going to bring you all back to talk a little bit about this. I'm assuming, since there's so much chatter going on, that you know one another better now, right?
Can I purchase one of those, or are they gone?
Absolutely. No, there is.
And,
She just
thank
had
you, this
him.
was great.
It's $10. She just had him sign it.
That would be great. And then if I go on the web, I have to run to Annenberg now, where my daughter is.
Okay.
So if I
Oh, Jim,
run-
do you have another?
Got a $20 bill.
Yeah, do you have
I
another?
might have 5. I might have 5 more.
Whoever thought we'd be selling these today?
1, 2, 3. Let me see. You never know. You look in the pockets.
I know.
I should have brought some change along.
Yeah,
I'm sure I have it. I just have to get.
that's me. I stuff them in all different kinds of places.
If you have change for 20, that might be the way to go.
I don't think you do because you don't have change for 20, do you?
I've got 9.
You've got 9. He can give you 9.
That'd be great.
You settle for
So
9.
then we'll end up even again.
Hi, Doctor.
Yeah.
Is there a book that we could, I'm here for Parent Weekend, so is there a book that we could get that would describe it all in detail? She had like a handbook.
If you want him to sign it, she opened hers up and had him write on the DVD. Hang on to take that because that has my email on it, and you can always reach me through
And is
it.
this book available, or do you get it on can you get it on
You
Amazon?
can get it Amazon used.
Okay.
In fact, one of my students got it, and it was signed to Lisa, and it was Don, but he had signed it.
Oh,
So,
wonderful. Okay.
great. Yes,
you can get that. Okay.
yes. And right now, I'm selling some of these DVDs for $10.
Yeah, I wanted to try to get a book or something along
this
that
one.
line. Okay.
And they
Your
may
name
have
is your name on the back of it?
I'm right here. I'm Cheryl.
Oh, sure.
They
Okay.
may have it in the bookstore here.
Okay.
Let me ask Lori, because she was going to go.
Thank you so much. I was telling the young lady that I've taken some classes in writing memoirs, and that's because I just turned 60.
Oh, yes. It's caught me up. I can't drop it.
Let's see, the one that,
I didn't bring some more books along. I had some other examples there.
yeah, I want to see this one. Pleasure.
Good,
Pleasure
thank
to
you.
meet you. So my other just quickly, this is my desperate story. I mean, it's just oh, I know. But the other thing I wanted to tell you was that my grandmother, her mother in Oklahoma, had written because my uncle had asked her for me. It's scrawled. I don't know if it's too explainable. And as part of that, my grandmother was our ancestor was the youngest.
I didn't get one. May I have one of these?
Yeah, I know.
I'll take one from my.
I know. That's all there is.
Thank you.
I know. I know. And he typed it. I know, but I mean, I'm looking at he typed it and he went back and made his corrections. So I mean, he must have, you know. Okay, can we bring everybody back a little bit here? Did everybody have a chance to share a branching point? Everybody had a chance to say something about it? Let's just hear from a couple of you. We actually now have another St. Louis person here, Lori. I see I'm calling you by your first name. Right here. Whose name I don't know. Rolanda. She's from St. Louis.
St. Charles, St. Louis.
Yes.
This lady is a pediatrician who I'm growing up.
Wait a minute. Okay, let's hear some of the stories.
This lady here is a pediatrician
Rolanda?
From Romania, and her son is interested in gerontology.
Oh,
but
bring him over.
he's sophomore, freshman.
In what field? Oh, he is here. Oh, good.
So she's concerned that and he wants to go to medical school maybe, and
Yeah.
she's concerned whether, well, you say.
No concerns. I actually have no concerns, but I know I think it's wonderful. I was just surprised he chose gerontology because I'm a pediatrician, and he spent some time in pediatrics with me. But he was very close to his grandma, so he likes the Golden Girls show. It's really his. So I don't know. I think he likes the science of aging, and he actually plans to be a plastic surgeon someday. He's good in painting and drawings and sculpture. And
Is he here?
he's not here. He's taking a class in biology right now. Okay. But it's interesting. He said, I want to do whatever it takes to maintain people young, and starting with the science of gerontology, going to plastic surgery later. So I thought it was interesting. Yeah.
That's fascinating. So here, the mother is a pediatrician, and she's trying to understand why her son wants to be a gerontologist and go into aging. That was fascinating. That's great. Anybody else? What were some of the other branching points? What was your branching point? Tell us about one of... In fact, what we'll have you do is introduce your other person. So rather than telling your own branching point, can you tell Barbara's branching point, Laura?
Well, Barbara is Dr. Birren's daughter, and her branching point, when you meet her, she's got a British accent. And so I thought maybe she was the daughter-in-law instead of the daughter. And her branching point was when Dr. Birren did a sabbatical at Cambridge. And she loved it so much that she ended up going back and eventually marrying an Englishman. So that sabbatical.
And she's still there.
And
she's back visiting now.
That sabbatical of her dad's was a branching point in her life.
That's a good one. Mm-hmm. Perfect. What was Laura's branching point then?
Right. Laura's branching point was when she was a freshman in college and her mother died, and then she had to stop living at home and go and live in the dorm and manage her life that way, having gone very shy and having to manage all the aspects of her life that way.
So you were bumped out of the nest quickly, right? Kicked out. Well, you fell out anyway, but you've landed right, Laura. We know that. Who else? Who has a branching point here? Natalie, how about you? Who did you introduce? Or who did
my partner had to leave.
Oh, well, we don't want to talk about somebody who's not here, so he can't tell. Huh? Oh, she's back.
Oh.
See that? Well, come on down here. So tell us her branching point.
Okay, I'd be more than happy to.
So now that she's here, we can talk about her, but we don't talk behind somebody's back, right?
Well, she lived in Italy for a great amount of time, and I think one of her primary aspirations was to have a child and to raise a child. So, in terms of like dealing with culture clashes, she was able to thrive and be able to have a beautiful daughter named Natalie, which she's really proud of.
Which happens to
it was meant to be.
Name too.
And right now, Natalie studies at the School of Communication, so at the Annenberg School, and she's actually going to visit her right now.
Oh.
So very soon. But
she came back to hear stories.
But, so she's very gracious. I had my child since I wasn't able. I decided since I had divorced parents that I was going to get married and have a child. Well, since that wasn't happening when I was 38, I decided to have one way or the other. So first I tried artificial insemination. This is what I told her, and then I said,
Were you in Italy at this time?
No, I was in America, and I had a Catholic stepfather in Italy, doctor, and a mother who was a fundamentalist, and
in Italy,
who was living with my stepfather in Italy.
In Italy,
yeah. And so the long story short is the story is it's the most courageous thing I ever did, which is a friend of mine and I then had a child together, and he had a family of his own, and it is the organizing principle of my life, which is the most courageous thing I've done, and it's a wonderful thing, So and now,
That's wonderful. That sounds like a screenplay. Do we have any screenwriters here?
Well, they just made one.
They made that into a movie?
Well, Annette Bening just made, sort of, except I'm not
right.
I'm not gay.
But you're not gay. Except for the fact that she's not gay, the movie is the same. The script runs.
Right.
That was great.
And then Natalie,
Yes.
Natalie and I had a lot in common. She's cross-cultural. She has an Armenian Russian parents. She described herself with a colorful word, which I won't repeat here. You might want to talk to her. But and I said, how did you become interested in gerontology? And she said she had a grandfather who had Alzheimer's. She herself had a personal issue you might want to talk to her about. And she's going to be a doctor, and I would love to have her as my doctor. Oh, perfect.
There's a narrative medicine now. They have medicines that doctors that want to take your story and talk and find out what's really wrong with you. That was great. How about somebody else? How about this group? Our true British, our true Brit.
Yes, I've got a proper English accent, and Barbara in England is instantly recognisable as an American. So, Corinne, in front of me, is a sophomore, and comes from Glendale, which isn't so far away. But for her, that change from Glendale and choosing to move here was the big step in her life. Yes.
It would be. Especially since Karin is my youngest student. Karin has just turned 19. Yeah, right. We sure did. We sang, too, didn't we? Karin, tell us about either...
Well, I'll do RG. This is RG. She comes from Greece, and she came here when she was 19 to go to university, and here she met her husband.
Sliding down behind her, because we keep them separated, remember, in the groups.
And she said that was a very big branching point in her life because she had come here by herself. And she said that when her mom saw her leave on the plane, her mom actually fainted.
Oh, no. Did you see your mother again?
Oh, yes.
Oh, see that in those days, you didn't know that you were going to go back to. It's not like today. Can you tell us about John? Did John talk, or is he typically
Yes.
Brit and doesn't say anything?
Oh, he did. The main branching point for him was when he changed jobs.
Not that close.
Oh, okay. When he
See
changed.
why we don't put husband and wife together? They can't help themselves. No, go on.
When he changed jobs, and he was very apprehensive, of course, and thinking of a lot of things, you know. But he said that it was the best thing he did for himself.
What was it you did?
I was a university professor.
Yeah, and you changed jobs.
I changed. Is that still working? Yes. Yeah. Yes, I decided I'd done that for 26 years, and I realise now that that was plenty long enough to be in an institution like this one here.
Now, could you talk to Dr. Birren about that? I mean, I don't think he got that message. I'm not quite sure, but did you understand that his big branching point was actually leaving academia? Well, I know we have a family here, so I know you guys didn't, if you followed the rules right, didn't sit together. Who would like to just introduce somebody? Who did you have, Remy?
I was paired up with Mike and Gary back there.
Mike and Gary in the back.
And it was really interesting because both of their branching points had to do with football.
Oh, do you have kids here at USC? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, Gary's third generation.
Why? See, it's the football that's the draw, right? Okay, go ahead. So what was their branching point? Had to do with football. What was it?
Well, I'll choose Mike because I found his to be really interesting.
Which one is Mike with the hat? They're both Mike?
No, Mike and Gary. And for Mike, it was when he was 4 years old, and his father would take him out to the football game, which was a rare occasion because his father was really busy working all the time. But that's when his passion for football started, since he was 4 years old, and he played semi-pro for a while. He managed a semi-pro league. He played in high school and college. But what was really fascinating to me about that is that now anytime he interacts with football in his life, whether he's watching or playing, that's a connection to his father. So his father is present in his life every day.
How great. How great. What a great one. And what about Gary? What was Gary's branching point? Mike, can you tell us about his? Or did you listen? I've done this before with men. I'm telling you, the men don't listen. They look at each other like, what do you mean branching point? Let's see if he remembers. Do you know each other?
No.
Okay.
No. But I listened, and there's a picture of him as a youngster with USC in 1968 on it, which he doesn't remember actually being there, but that was his introduction into the Trojan family, and he's been very active in it ever since, and interviews Trojan athletes and as kind of a hobby, and has interviewed John Wooden, and so it turned his life towards sports, and he's a very active fan ever since.
Now we can have you interview Trojan gerontologists, get into life story writing.
I was going to add this in interviewing old players and the stuff. I'm preserving their story for the past, but I've done verbal, audio, and video, and depends on permission how comfortable they are. And I found that video is the best because you can't capture the animation of their face and things like that, and then I make a DVD up for them for their family after that.
That's great.
So it's just for tips. Video's the way to go.
There's an organization called the Association of Personal Historians, and the main number of people, it's nationwide. The people in there, I think there's like 800 members. They do oral histories. For instance, she's gone. Anyway, her mother, she could have sent somebody to go in and interview her mother and get the story down. A lot of them are videographers. Now, did either of you listen to Remy's branching point?
Yeah, we both. Yeah.
Okay, I'm so glad that you guys are such good
Well,
friends.
this is one, and I came a little late because this was kind of a hard place to find for me.
Hard place to find, remember that now. We don't have aging students because it's a hard place.
But hers was the lemon cake story, where she was very upset because it was her birthday, and traditionally on her birthday they had a nice party and her favorite lemon cake. And when she woke up, her mother wasn't at home, which meant no lemon cake. And her father informed her that her mother had gone because a friend had been in an accident and was in critical condition, and that they were on an island, Catalina Island. They were going to go to the mainland, and they were going to spend the day at the hospital with her mother. And she was very upset, as a young child would be.
She was like 12 or something, or
Yes.
7,
And so she said that she hopes that the lady just dies because it ruined her day. And her father did not address the issue, kind of walked away and came back later. And what happened was, when they got to the hospital, the mother of the lady who was ill felt that it was such a generous gesture on her part to give up her birthday and travel to the mainland that she actually baked a cake, and by coincidence it was a lemon cake, and really kind of praised her for her ability as a 12-year-old to put priorities in place, which she credited her mother for really helping her with, because obviously it was a little bit of a forced issue, but it was a nice branching point for her.
So she had her cake and could eat it too. Who else do we have? I don't know if we're going to get to everybody. Who else? Yes.
I really have enjoyed this process because what you said is absolutely true.
Thank you. It doesn't happen often. My kids always tell me I'm wrong.
Fact of asking. That's going to be
okay.
too loud.
That's all right. Go ahead.
Okay. By the fact of asking questions and listening to the other people, it generates so many memories of your own. It really does work, and I'm just really impressed.
It is. It's the memories. It's also now. The other thing I want to tag onto that is, don't you feel connection to these people now that you didn't when you just came in? I see your best friend. Only women do that. I don't see the guy. They're sitting in other rows. They're not hugging each other yet. Tell us one of the branching points, or who was in your group.
Yes,
Savannah.
Sandy.
Saratoga.
Sandy from Saratoga.
Sandy's brother is 3 years younger?
Older.
And they had the same biological father, but their biological father was different emotionally to the two children.
So if he were writing this story, what he would say is my birth was his branching story, because
he's older than you.
He's 3 years older, because he saw how differently my father treated me as a girl than he treated him as a boy. Because my father's father during the Depression walked out on his family, and so he never had a father, and he didn't know how to father a boy, how to nurture a boy.
Yeah. Did that cause sibling rivalry in there?
Oh yeah.
Well, they've talked
having
about
two children causes sibling rivalry.
They've talked about it, and they've acknowledged this difference.
Yeah.
So there's been a reconciliation.
Are your parents still alive?
My mom's dead, but my dad's still alive.
He is.
He's 87.
Let's get him in our group.
Yeah.
Get him started here. We'll get him in one of our groups and figure it all out. Yeah. Okay, now my class, now if I let the class go, probably the whole room will empty. My class is going to go up and read their stories. So you'll all go to with your regular facilitator. Laura, you have your group. Okay, I didn't know you were going to do that, so that's why I gave you the handouts. It doesn't matter. If you want to do it that way, then go up to 224, all of you, and just... Then you won't have time, and who knows, we may eat all the food before you get down there, so I wouldn't want that to happen. No. Go ahead, you guys can leave now, and Jerry and Laura will take care of my group as well, and we're a very small group this time because we have 2 people not here, so 2 or 3. 3, because Tim and Robert, I don't know why this sometimes goes crazy, and Mary Margaret are not here. So you guys can go up and then come down and have lunch with us. No. June will take my group. June will be with Karen and Natalie.
So should my group stay down here?
You guys can all go up to 224 and introduce the themes. And so what they're actually doing now is they're going to go up and do the classes that they normally have. Look at that. More than half the audience is leaving. See the power you have when you have to be someplace? Yeah.
Could I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Dr. Birren, a lot of times I will help people talk about teenagers today, children today, blah, blah, blah. They aren't respectful. They don't do this. They are this way. And you've been through
What she's asking you is, do you see a difference in teenagers from 40, 50, 60 years ago? Or you can look at your daughter and remember her as a teenager, and the teenagers that we are teaching in our classes today. Do you see a change in the way teenagers are or behave? We won't get into things like dressing, and I'm sitting here freezing, and half the teenagers are, dressed in little skimpy things.
Well, I think there's been considerable change. When I was a teenager, in my last year in college, I wore a hat. And in Chicago, I was distant from the high school, and streetcar was 7 cents. If we walked, we could buy a hamburger for a dime. And I walked with a friend of mine. So the whole constellation. Also in college, I was in the technical courses. No girls in any of the technical courses. Oh, how come? That was a period of time. And then we went on a bus trip from Chicago to Detroit to visit a new innovation in industry, the Ford Motor Company assembly line. No girls went. There were no girls working there. Tremendous change in the roles of women and girls today.
I'm asking the question more about in their behavior, in their college classroom. As an educator, you see a significant difference between... Okay. What I'm really asking about is more about the behavior of your students in the classroom. The students that you would have today versus the students you had in 1990 versus the students you had in 1970. Are they really that much different? I know their clothes are completely different, their lifestyles are different, but the behavior of your students, has that changed in the years you've been teaching at the university level?
That pushes me. I don't think I'm ready to give a sensible answer to that. I'd have to think about that a little bit. Because my first impression is no, they haven't changed that much in terms of their interest, their curiosity about life, but their technical things have changed. They come in with laptops, and their dress has changed, and their physical characteristics have changed. There was an Englishman, Tanner, who did a study on how the menstrual period in girls has moved down from 15 to 16 to 12. So girls are young women earlier in life than they used to be. But I don't know how to factor that in. I'm just dropping some stones.
I think just a little bit of experience that I've had, I would agree with what he's saying. I think basically the kids are the same. But I'll give you an example of last week in the class. I was talking about research, and I was going back. There's something we call the self-assessment survey, and it goes back to Leary, Timothy Leary. And I keep thinking about Timothy Leary and just, LSD and drugs and all that. But anyway, he is a psychologist, and he has this interpersonal checklist survey. And I said, I've never really seen the original. And while I was talking, you probably didn't notice, we had one gentleman here. Out of the class of graduate and undergraduate students, we only have one male. All the rest are female. So that tells you something about the mix of in the field of aging. Anyway, Patrick pulled up on his internet, got the website, and pulled up this interpersonal checklist survey while I'm sitting there talking about saying that I've never seen it before. He has it. So and he didn't say it like, look, Dr. Svensson, if you would have just done your homework, but he, which is what I was kind of feeling. But anyway, he found it for me. So no, I think again, the technology, they have the skills. They are a different skill set. Great kids. Great kids. Yeah. Sure.
And this is for you, too.
Oh, okay.
In the early portion of the 19th century, there was a Frenchman by the name of Albert Tocqueville, and he roamed this country, and he wrote exposés and histories. It was quite interesting. And so when I started my world travels back in the 70s and I thought, that's a neat way to record my thoughts and feelings. And so I've kind of done that throughout my life as far as events in our family. My daughter's currently USC Song Girl, so I'm writing about all the games that she's involved with. My 39th year on this planet, I wrote every day. And my point is that sometimes you're so tired, but you got to get that information down, so you're not writing exact prose. And I'm thinking, well, if I have time in my retirement in my future, I want to go back and transcribe that and do it all these years and all that information. The point is, how do you transcribe that information? You know, because if you try to put it into formal prose, then you somewhat lose the emotion of it. What would be your recommendations?
Did you record it audio?
It was all written and stuff.
It's all written.
Yeah.
I was say there's something, I just found out there's something called Dragon Speaking Naturally that you can actually talk into it and it'll plug it into your computer and it will transcribe it for you by voice recognition.
But this goes back decades, and that's a lot of information.
So you want to know how to put it all together.
Yeah, so it makes sense.
Oh, it's like somebody that's kept journals. I was a journal writer. You know, I don't know if I'm ever going to go back and look at those journals again. But I think the thing for you, it'd be like a giant. Did you hear what he said, Jim? Did you understand it all? He's kept journals all of his life, and he's written down prose and all of these different things for how many? I was wondering what your job was. What did you?
Well, I'm a specialist in restorative dentistry.
Oh, you're a dentist. Oh.
I travel and sports stuff.
Yeah. So you've kept all of this all of these years. I think you're a hidden writer in all of this. Oh, honest to goodness. He's a dentist who could be a writer. And he's got all of this information, and he's wondering how he could transcribe it and put it into some kind of a document that would make sense. Well, actually, Jim is a good one to talk about this, because actually Jim Birren, in all of the classes that he's taught, the very first guided autobiography class was taught here in the auditorium, I believe, Betty, because I know you were a co-leader with him. I believe it was in the auditorium. It was a summer institute. It was 2 weeks. They met every day for 2 hours a day. And Jim oftentimes wrote his story and shared it with the class. So he has probably 300 stories that he's written. We are now working with a woman named Mary O'Brien Tyrell, who has a company called Memoirs, Inc. I mentioned Association of Personal Historians. She's out of St. Paul. And she's now taking all of Jim Birren's stories and trying to put them together into some kind of a meaningful whole. And if you think about, it's kind of what yours is like, because he has themes that he's written about work. He's got some about death. He's got some about, meeting Betty. So as far as I know, she's divided it up into 3 parts. Early childhood up to the time he meets Betty, his work career, and then kind of making sense of it all. So it's going to be like 3 different books. But I think it's going to be a matter of you spreading it all out and turning up all those pieces and looking it over.
I find it hard to respond directly to your question, but the issue is one of adding up our lives, putting it in a book, and passing it on. And I had an example recently of the far past. It was a book given to me by a 16-year-old who kept a diary during the Revolutionary War. He was literate, and he talked about what it was like fighting for the colonists against the British. And he described the fact that they were short of food. And as a private, he was not an officer, they would walk around the farmlands and steal food. And one time they went away for 2.5 days without any food. Is that your idea what the Revolutionary War was like? See, that's a bottom-up history. What it was like in the everyday experiences of people compared with the historical view of the major hero figures and the political influences of the day. And I think that's an important thing. And many of the episodes we have lived through, like the Great Depression and sometimes tornadoes and things like that, what it was like, the details of that. And I call that bottom-up history. Bottom-up history is important for societies. What it was like in the Revolution in those days, I had no idea what it was like till I read that book. And then family histories, what it was like for families when they came here. And I've had stories. One woman recently grew up in West Virginia, one of 9 children. Can you imagine growing up in 9 children in a farming country? How different that was. And then the individual history, adding it up, putting it in the book, passing it on.
So you have a bottom-up history, but we don't know how to tell you what to do with it. Spread all those pieces out. I think it really is going to be, I bet you have reams and boxes of things. You know, good retirement plan.
I have a couple of questions that's more related to the academic degrees in terms of, for the Doctor of Philosophy degree, do you recommend, if you have no gerontology background, that you actually go through the master's first? Or can you just go directly to the doctorate? That's question 1. Question 2 is, this autobiographical studies program, is it a whole program, or is it just the 10 session for this class? And does that happen each semester?
Okay, I can't. You want to address the academic question? When I got my master's degree, there were no doctorate degrees. That was in 1977. So the doctorate degree is new for me. And I have my PhD in psychology, but I did research in aging. So I don't know about transferring with. Do you want to discuss that or credits? I have no idea. And of course, Maria Hankey, the assistant dean, is not here.
Well, I've had many students in the past who developed different research interests. The autobiography program came along later, and I've not had many doctorates involved in that. But some of them are going back now, getting interested after they specialized in some other aspect of gerontology. But I think it's an emergent field, and someone now who's going to get a PhD could do a dissertation on autobiography. As I indicated, the woman who's now at Oxford, looking at how men and women interpret their lives. There's an example of something, but it's a developing thing. There's not many specific programs yet in place.
The second question was about the autobiographical studies. These are classes that we've developed with Jim Birren. Actually, did I give you one of these? No, I think it's. Oh, there is one of these. No, this is different. This shows. Anyway, there's actually 5 classes. We have guided autobiography, which is what Jim started back in the 70s. I have written a syllabus for guided autobiography too, because what happens is you'll see that once you get to know somebody's story, you don't want to let them go. You know, you're going to go find whatever her name was and sit at the same table when you have lunch or whatever. You get to know the stories, you get connected. People don't want to stop. I actually have a group in Fullerton that calls themselves the Unguided Autobiography Group. They went through both Guided Autobiography 1 and 2 with me, and now they meet on their own, and they've been doing it since 2001. They meet once a month, they bring their lunch, and they write about whatever they want to write about. So they call themselves the Unguided Group. And out of that group, 3 of them have died. I just went to the funeral of one of the members yesterday. So it's just an incredible power that this has to hold you in it. So then we also have an EGAB, which is an online class. So I'm now teaching online both people how to become guided autobiography instructors, as well as just to take the writing class themselves. So we have students from, like Jim was saying, we've had 3 professors, one in Seoul, Korea, one in Taipei, Taiwan, and one in in Japan, someplace in the middle of Japan. And so anyway, and then again with this program, we have a class called Life Portfolio, which Dr. Birren and Helen Kirshner developed. And we have one other missing, family history. Sometimes people say, most people say, when you say, come on, write your story, I don't have a story to tell. I'm so boring, but you should talk to my Aunt Sue, or if you could hear my dad tell his story or whatever. You know, so maybe if you get them in by having something about family history, what are the family values that were passed down to you? And do you really need to hold on to those values? So all of these classes are based on the same format as this. The USC class, we've done it 3 times now, and it combines the older and younger students on purpose. So the The students pay their regular tuition and credit fees, and the retired faculty come in as faculty. They don't pay anything. So that's a different thing. So I don't know if I answered your question or confused the issue more, but.
So basically on the website it tells you the cost.
Yes, the website, yeah. Right. It has all of them. It has everything on there. Yeah.
I would think that this should be promoted to prevent dementia.
Oh, it is. This is the other thing is use it or lose it. Don't, yeah. She's saying don't get dementia. See, Dr. Birren, he's just clear as a bell, and he's 92. He's been doing this all these years, so that's why we know you're as good as you are, right? That proves it. We won't say it's incidental, but
Yeah,
proves
for
it in my mind.
preventative medicine.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing is use it or lose it. You have to do a lot of thinking and putting together and remembering, to do these. And the other thing, before he takes over, because I can tell he's going to do it, you don't just tell the same old stories that you've always told. Like, I was born in Minnesota, and I just love telling my youngest son is 22. Every time I used to have to take him to a piano lesson or drive him to soccer lesson, I go, gosh, Nick, when I was your age, I'd come home from school, I'd get on, it'd be 10 below zero, and I'd grab my ice skates and walk 2 miles to the ice skating rink, skate, and come home. Those are stories, and it just went right over his head. I mean, I know he never really listened to me. When you write on these themes, how many of you know what your parents' ideas were about death or spirituality or, heaven forbid, sexuality? When you write on the themes, you're uncovering things in yourself, and you're leaving not the, quote, stories that you've told. You're finding out things about yourself. So it really is, it both generates, new neurons and new synapses and new connections, etc.
Well, I like that question very much because it takes me back into the academic side. And I think that groups are helpful in reducing the effects of Alzheimer's disease. When you move into a group, you're priming your questions, you're priming your memories, and you reinforce things, and I don't think you lose these things as quickly. But on the other hand, I don't have any evidence for that. I think we need some research by taking groups who are early, say, Alzheimer's disease diagnosed, put them in a group, and have them exchange their life stories and measure the effects. We need evidence.
And, just as, a point of interest here, guided autobiography is academically based, and that is Jim Birren's, he's got, both guided autobiography and the fact that it stays in academia and research are two of his prime motivators. We're actually working with a study of Dr. Victor Henderson at Stanford, who is using guided autobiography as an intervention with 3 different groups, and it's going to be the longest running study. It will go for 1 year. He has 3 groups. One group meets every week for 6 months with guided autobiography. So I've now created 29 themes. The second group alternates. 1 week it's guided autobiography. The second week it's Tai Chi. Guided autobiography, Tai Chi. The third group is a control group, and all they're getting is educational information about memory, relationships, downsizing, whatever. They're getting an educational one. So for 6 months, they're going to meet every week, and then the next 6 months, it'll be once a month. So it should be interesting to see what the research shows, because they're doing pre, mid, and post tests with these groups of people. And they have, I know that in the 2 groups, there's 18 in each group, so they must have at least 40, 50 people in the study. And if anybody wants information on that, you can ask me.
Today, our emphasis has been on the autobiographical experience, doing it as individuals, not on the academic side. I could have brought along an autobiography, a bibliography of the issues of research and scholarship about biography, autobiography, and it's getting to be a big field, and unfortunately I didn't bring that along today. I didn't bring many books along, but today we wanted to emphasize the personal experience of.
I just want to say one thing because it's so unusual. This just came in the mail yesterday. I get this email from a man named Oliver Booth about 2 weeks ago, and he said, I just found out your website, and I was wondering if you would like a copy of my autobiography. And I go, gosh, Oliver, yeah, that'd be great. He says, it's 40 million and still counting. And my mind's thinking, 40 million, maybe there's going to be an endowment in there for the Birren autobiographical studies or something, right? So anyway, the book arrived yesterday. He lives in England, in Derbyshire, which you said is in the Midlands or something, didn't you?
It's not far from where I lived for 30 years.
Oh, my gosh. Well, anyway, so he writes this book, 40 million and counting. He was 76 when he wrote it. It was 40 million seconds in his life. So that's why the title came from. But what he says in here is interesting because he says, my interest in time and how it is used stems from my belief that everyone's life is important and warrants equal merit in any study of the subject. But in thinking this way, I failed to realize that I was acting as a gerontologist. That is, until I was told so by American academic Dr. James E. Birren. I had been a regular reader of the American magazine Psychology Today, and in the May 1987 issue, now think, 1987, he's been working on this, he only just published it, there appeared an article by him on the value of writing one's autobiography, a subject he taught to a wide range of students of all ages. Dr. Birren says that autobiography gives meaning to our present by helping us to understand our past more fully. I wrote to him and was grateful for the advice he gave me. Now, Jim doesn't remember what advice he gave him, but whatever he told him, he wrote the book. That's the point. He wrote this book. He wrote his life story all these years later, and it's only now been published.
I think in a few minutes there's going to be some lunch outside, and I'm going to be here for a little bit, but then I'm going to go across campus to see somebody I haven't seen for many years. But I'm going to give you the last word.
Oh, that doesn't happen very often. Oh, my goodness. Really? Well, anyway, what can I say? See, he always has a way of putting you up onto that point. Thank you. I appreciate all of you who took the time to come. I encourage you to bring your daughters, and we've got some daughters and sons in the program. Maybe this is an upcoming one pretty soon that's going to be coming in one day, maybe like 5-10 years from now. 8 years? Oh, my gosh. You never know. Who knows? You must have an older brother or sister here. Sister, what department? Really? Well, who is? Who? Kirsty. Well, we should get Kirsty in our class. She would love it. You have to go back and tell her how great it is because we'd love to have her. I want to read just one thing as we end. This is one of my favorite books, Turning to One Another. It's about from a woman named Margaret Wheatley. It's about conversations and how important stories are in our life. And I think the other side of really writing and reading your story is the fact that you're heard, that you have other people, just like when I had you do this little branching point exercise, and I was kidding the guys, Mike and Gary, that they didn't really listen. They did listen, and one thing that happens is you do listen. And that's one of the beauties of it. It says, whatever life we have experienced, if we can tell someone our story, we find it easier to deal with our circumstances. I have seen the great healing power of good listening so often that I wonder if you've noticed it also. There may have been a time when a friend was telling you such a painful story that you became speechless. You couldn't think of anything to say, so you just sat there, listening closely, but not saying a word. That's the type of listening and interacting that goes on in guided autobiography groups, and I thank all of you for sticking with us. I do believe that there's going to be a free lunch in the courtyard. That always, if it's anything like see, now he wants the last word. I can tell. That was just the lead-in because he wants to say something.
I want to thank you for coming.
Oh, great. Thank you.